I went through all of my GCSE years and then all of my A-level years with an average of just an hour a day of studying, if even. And guess what? I still got the top grades. A huge misconception is that if you want to get the top grades, you just need to put in more hours per day. But in reality, with the right studying techniques, you can study less than an hour a day and still get the top grades, even if you're not that smart. I know because I've been constantly doing it. But how do you do it though? Well, first, you need to understand that studying is 100% quality over quantity. Before any test when I was at school, I would always see people asking each other, how much did you study for this test? And honestly, that question would make me cringe. I could just stare at a textbook for 4 hours before an exam and still get terrible grades. It's about how and when you study, not how much. You need to first consider when you're going to study. One of the reasons why I can study so little per day and still get the top grades is because I have a strict rule of not studying past 7 p.m. no matter what. I want you to imagine a health bar, like one of those you would have in a fighting video game, but instead of health, it says brain power. Most things you do per day require brain power, like conversations, deciding what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, and even watching a YouTube video like you are right now. And so all of these things take away from your brain power bar. And so from my experience, once you get past 7 p.m., there's not enough brain juice there for you to study effectively. You could be doing practice questions and it feels like you can't really answer them that well. Or you try to memorize information, but it's just not sticking in your brain. Those things require a lot of brain power, and so it's better to study as early as possible in the morning. Let's say you're thinking of studying and it's 9 p.m. Instead of studying, why don't you just sleep, wake up a bit earlier, and then use that time to study instead? All you're doing is that you're taking that studying time and you're transferring it from the night to the morning. So you lose absolutely nothing, but you gain an effective studying session. You might say, oh, but I'm not really a morning person, I'm more of a night owl. Honestly, that's BS. No one's a night owl. You're just a terrible sleeper. If you have the time, read a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And if you don't have the time, try to search up a summary. Honestly, it changed my life and it's going to change yours as well. Now, if you want to study less than an hour a day, then my second piece of advice is just to stretch out your studying over a longer period of time. If you have mocks coming up, instead of starting 2 weeks before, why not start a month before? At first, it might be a bit harder because you don't have that stress to push you, no motivation because there's no deadline in the horizon. So it's kind of hard to get over that mental block of starting to study. But once you force yourself to do it, it's a lifesaver. And also, when you stretch out your studying over a longer period of time, it doesn't only mean that you get to study less per day, but also has an element of spaced repetition. And that means that you get to study even less per day because the information will just flow in and out of your brain. And also helps you kill exam stress because you know that you've been studying for the past month instead of the past 2 weeks. And so it gives you something like a mental cushion and helps you focus more on the exam. And there's still 3 months left until GCSEs and A-levels. So if you start now, even if it's just going through the syllabus or going through notes or making flashcards, you can still definitely get away with an hour a day. And then maybe in the couple of days leading up to an exam, you can increase it to 2 hours. Now next, you need to focus on the important things while studying. Highlighting, coloring in your notes and reading them and all of that passive studying stuff, just throw it out. All you need to do is just go through content, make notes, make flashcards, go through those flashcards, and then do practice questions. Now, that's a very oversimplified way of explaining my NFT method. But if you want to take your GCSE top grade journey to the next level, I've worked hard on a program that takes you from not knowing anything about studying and guides you through every step from A to Z to getting the top grades in your GCSEs. So far, it's helped numerous people on their journey of getting the top grades, all while not burning out by studying 10 hours a day. Remember, GCSEs are relative. If you want to get a 9, you have to do better than 95% of other people. And so, since there's only 3 months left, then invest into getting that competitive advantage over everyone else. Hit the first link in the description if you're interested. Now back to the video. Of course, you know what the 80-20 rule is. 80% of the results will come from 20% of the action. So to make your studying way more efficient, just find that 20% and then extrapolate it, make it 100%. You might have seen this video before and you're recommended. It's called Study Less, Study Smart by Marty Lobdell. It's an hour long, but trust me, it's worth it. Put it on 2 times speed if you have to, but if you still don't have the time, then I made a 5-minute summary that you could watch. Now another tip is to structure your studying. You can't just sit on your desk and ask yourself, oh, what do I feel like studying today? You have to already know. Now on the flip side, there's also a common mistake of people making structured timetables that they're going to stick to 100% of the time. It doesn't make sense to do so because if you haven't studied the topic yet, then you don't know how hard it is. You don't know how many hours you're going to need to get that topic down. So how can you then assume that the time allocated to it is enough? Both of those are extremes that are going to get you nowhere. If you want to get the top grades, you should follow this instead. What I'll do is that I'll just get a piece of paper and then divide it into columns for each subject. And then for each subject, I'm going to list every single action that I need to do for that subject to get the top marks. And then I have a checkbox next to each action. For example, for physics, I know that I'll need to go through the syllabus and then make flashcards for every single unit. And so I'll write flashcards as a heading and then list every single unit with a checkbox next to it. I also know that I'm going to have to do past papers. So I'll list every single past paper I can find and then a checkbox next to it as well. And so every time I sit down on my desk to study, I'll just look at the piece of paper and look at what needs to be completed. For example, if I see that I've done more boxes for physics rather than math, then I'll do math. Basically, I'll try to get all of the boxes from every single subject around the same level. And so I'll sit down, put on a Pomodoro cycle, then complete whatever task needs to be done. Once it's completed, I'll just check it off. Once I'm done, I'll probably take a break and then come back and repeat. Remember that brain power bar from earlier? Well, every decision you make will take from that brain power bar. If before every single studying session you sit for 2 minutes just to think of what you need to study for, then you're going to waste a bunch of that brain power. Instead, when you make it structured, you can save time and brain power on the actual studying. Now, my final tip is to have a study-life balance. There's many videos on YouTube titled How I Study 12 Hours a Day, and honestly, they make me cringe. Listen, I'll be honest, I don't know what it's like to study medicine or physics at Cambridge, for example, but I know that there isn't a single GCSE or A-level subject that will require you to study for literally half of the day. These videos promote a toxic studying lifestyle that doesn't really benefit anyone. I bet most of those people that are studying 12 hours a day aren't actually doing anything productive while studying. Maybe they'll get in 3 hours of effective studying, but the rest will be silly stuff that isn't really studying. For GCSEs and A-levels, no matter how dumb you are, I don't see a scenario where you need to be studying 10 hours a day. Optimize your studying technique as much as possible and then study as less as possible. Don't get drawn into this toxic 12 hours a day lifestyle because it's just not sustainable. You need to leave time to go to the gym, go on walks, spend time with family and friends, and so on. Those things increase your mental health, and so they contribute to your final grade just as much as studying does.